as I said earlier, we are going to do some work on the stabilizers here. And we're going to do that before we reassemble the rest of the board. And so the point of doing what we're doing with the stabilizers, that is clipping, lubricating, and then band-aid modding, and I'll show you each of those in turn. The point is to make them feel better, to make them feel smoother, to make them less rattly, just more satisfying in their action, basically. And this does take a bit of work, but believe me, it's worth it. It really does feel much, much better. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to clip our stabilizers. Well, actually, we'll do this. We'll do both of the things, I guess. We'll clip and lube each stabilizer in turn. That's probably the easiest way to do this. So let's start here. So the stabilizers are made up of these two halves connected by this wire here, and the noise when you're pressing down on stabilized keys tends to come from the stems rattling around in the housings, and also the wire rattling around where it connects. And so we want to deal with both of those things, but there's one issue we have to address first. So we're going to start off by just disassembling the stabilizer. So the wire just pops out like that. And then this stem just falls out of the housing like this. And we will do that. Actually, we'll leave the other half for now. I'll show you what's going on here. So the first thing we're going to do is clip these stabilizers. And if you look here, you'll see this is the part that smacks into the PCB and makes that noise. That's another contributor to the noise, of course, is the impact of this against the circuit board. And if you look at each of the little feet on this stem, hopefully you can see that 3 of them in this case are flat. 1, 2, 3. But one of them has this little prong that kind of sticks off it like that. And I don't know why they make stabilizers this way. I honestly don't. But many of them have this. Some of them have it on more than 1 foot. It's common to see it on 2 of the feet. That foot we're just going to clip off because that contributes to the clacky, rattly noise when this bottoms out on the PCB. So we don't really want that there, and removing it isn't going to harm the stability of the stabilizer. So I've got just some little wire clippers here, and we are literally just going to just clip it off, just like so. Easily done. So now we have a nice flat surface that will sit flush with the PCB when it impacts. So that's step 1. That's clipping your stabilizers. We're going to have to do that on both halves of this, but let's go through the whole process of clipping and lubing here. So once we've done that, we're going to take some of our synthetic grease. Now this is a PTFE or Teflon based grease. Sometimes you'll see it marketed as synthetic grease. I've never actually used this one before for lubing stabilizers, but I am led to believe that this is the type of grease you want. So we're going to try it out. It's a bit thinner than the dielectric grease, which is what we will use on the wire, but anywhere that plastic touches plastic in the stabilizers, you want to use PTFE or Teflon-based synthetic grease. So all we're going to do is just open this up here, and I'll take a cotton swab, and I'm just going to just bring out a bit of this here onto the cotton swab, like so. And we are going to just put that into the housing here, just on the inside. Just going to make sure that there's a a decent amount on all surfaces where plastic's going to touch plastic. So the idea here, again, is to stop the stem from rattling in the housing here. Good, okay. You don't need an excessive amount, but we just need enough. That's probably good. And then we will take this little stem that we clipped earlier, and we will put it back in the housing. And to do that, we want to find the side of the stem. This is going to be really hard for you to see, but on one side, we've got two holes. We've got this one, and we've got one down below as well. Can you see that? On the other side, we've just got a single opening. You can see it there. So what we want to do is take the side with the two holes, the one up top and the one down below, and we want that to face where the wire is going to clip in. So that, in this case, you can see on the housing here, it has this channel where the wire clips in. So pop that in there like so. You can already see it slides much more smoothly without the rattle. You can hear, well, you can see and hear, actually. So that's great, but we're not quite done yet, actually. What we need to do, this does get a bit messy. You do get grease on your fingers. The next step is the dielectric grease. So we're going to pop this open, like so. And you can get both of these at any hardware store, basically. They're pretty easy to come by. So we're going to simply take this here wire, and we're just going to dip it in. We're going to dip it in just past the 90-degree angle on the wire there, just to coat it, basically. That might be a little bit much, but there, like so. And then we take it and we insert it, but I'm going to take a little bit off of there. That is a bit much. It's a bit heavy. But we just want it enough that it's not going to rattle. There we go. We insert it back into our stabilizer assembly, and then we pop it back into place. And there we have a nice lubed stabilizer. Clipped and lubed. Now let's do that with all the rest. The rest of these should be quite a bit faster, since I'm not going to have to explain every step along the way. So we're just going to clip. Then we will lube the housing. Oh, that's the wrong lubricant. Don't do that, Nick. Good. Oops, don't want to lose these parts. I mean, you could order new stabilizers online if you had to, of course, but ideally you don't want to have to lose them. And now the dielectric grease, like so. Yeah, you don't need to overkill it, but you do want to be fairly generous, because the idea is that you're trying to stop the rattle, right? You don't want grease everywhere inside your keyboard, but you do want things to be pretty well stabilized in there. Sometimes getting the wire back in place can be a little tricky. There we go. And just pop it back into place. There we go. So that is a completed stabilizer. Now, the one downside of using cotton swabs for this is that you do sometimes get errant little bits of cotton. It's not going to hurt anything, but it's just get these little wispy bits. So, yeah, one completed stabilizer. Nice and smooth. Absolutely. Oh, maybe not. Actually, I might have done that. Oh, rats, you guys. I don't think I got it right where it needed to be. There. There. You can see there's no rattle. You can hear there's no rattle. That should be much better. Alright, let's keep moving. We got a lot of ground to cover here. Next up. Disassemble. Pop out the stem. Give it a clip. Take the synthetic grease, PTFE grease, put a modest amount onto a cotton swab, and then just spread that around inside the housing. Very nice. Take the stem, pop it back in. Again, sometimes you gotta wiggle it a little. There we go. Put that aside. Dielectric grease. In goes the wire. Past the 90-degree point. Pull it on out. Make sure you've got adequate coverage. And then get it where it needs to go. That's always the tricky part. I think we got it there. Looking good. Looking good. Same thing, other side. I have to shout out Types, who is one of the most prominent mechanical keyboard YouTubers. And he knows his stuff. Boy, does he ever. Everything I know about clipping and lubing stabilizers and Band-Aid modding, which we will see shortly, I learned from him, from his YouTube video. So you can go check that out too. You don't have to take my word for it. I'm using his technique. So there we go. And it goes. Snap. There we've got slightly gooey, but a functional stabilizer. And again, just for comparison here, you guys, let's listen to an unlubricated stabilizer, or a factory lube stabilizer that barely has any lube on it. Listen. You can easily hear where that rattle comes from when you're typing with these. We take a lubed one. Almost nothing. Basically just the sounds of the lubricant. there's no rattle of the wire. So that will drastically improve typing sound and typing feel. Again, it's not just about the sound, it's about the smoothness with which these stabilizers operate. Gotta make sure the stem's the right way around before reinserting it. Again, sometimes you have to wiggle it a bit. There we go. To get it to go in properly. Oops, thicker dielectric. I don't know why I keep using the wrong one. It's not going to hurt anything if you use the wrong lubricant on the wrong step. It's just that I believe the Teflon grease is better for plastic on plastic contact longevity, and the dielectric grease is a bit thicker, and so it's going to, there we go, wasn't getting quite enough on there. If you use it on the stem and housing, it might be a little too stiff. It might not slide quite the way you want it to. I did try it on my Prionic build, you might recall, and it worked out okay, but it just did feel a little thick. The key didn't spring back up quite as snappily as you might like, because the lubricant was a bit too thick. So that's why we use the Teflon grease on the housing. There we go. I know it's coming in and out of focus. I do apologize, but it's just, hopefully you can get the gist of what's going on here. Pop that back in. Very nice. Dielectric. Oh, that's maybe a little too gooey. Probably less than I need. There, it's a little better. Again, you can always just take a bit off with a cotton swab if it's a little too much. And back in it goes. Almost, maybe. There, I think we're, oh no. Sometimes it's a little trickier than other times to get it to seat the wire properly. There. Great. And don't worry about having grease on the bottoms of the stabilizer where it's going to impact the PCB. It won't hurt the PCB. And also, we're going to address that in a second with the Band-Aid mod. In fact, we will be adding our own grease to the Band-Aids. Literal Band-Aids. You'll see. You'll see when we get there. Okay, let's do this guy before we go for the big one. Hopefully I remember to clip all these. Hopefully I haven't missed one. Oh, that looks good. Just realized I wasn't being as diligent about it as I ought to be. Yeah, no, we got them all. Good. Okay, so this one here, give it a clip. Off it comes. for our Teflon grease. PTFE is just the generic name for Teflon. It's the compound. Teflon is just the trade name. Got a little too much going on there. That's what the cotton swab's for. Yeah, that should do. That pops in. Very nice. Yeah, the amount of grease on here from the factory is quite paltry. And it's clearly not enough to suppress the rattle, as we heard in that little comparison. So, there's that. There. Good. Good. Let's just clean this up a little bit mucky. Okay. Clip. Just trying to use the residual on the cotton swab there because we've got quite a bit that's kind of built up. Great. Always check to see that the stem is oriented correctly, or else you're going to struggle to get the the wire back in when it comes time to snap it into place. If you're curious, I don't know if I showed you properly how much is on there. It's just enough to coat it thoroughly up to the corner and a little beyond. Like, these things don't need to be syrupy. They just need to be dampened and lubricated. But again, if you do have a little too much on there, it's not going to damage your board or anything. So I do tend to err on the side of a little more than a little less. Because I think it's, you know, the worst case scenario, your keycaps and your PCB get a little greasy on the underside. Your PCB on the top side and your caps on the underside, whatever. Good. Okay. One left to go. The big one. But it's no different. It operates exactly the same. It's just got a longer wire. So we're going to clip. We're going to lube. Now, some people would say this is way too much work. Why would I ever do this? And that's a fair, fair assessment. But if you're watching this video and you're into mechanical keyboards, you probably care about typing feel and typing sound. You probably care about your typing experience, at least a little bit. And this drastically improves typing feel. That's pretty much all I can tell you, but you're going to have to listen for yourself once we get to the sound test, the typing test. Once we've got this board back together, I will play you, once we get to that point, a clip of, oh, come on now. Come on. There. I'll play you a clip from my original Drop Control review, and then I will juxtapose that, contrast it to the modified version that we have built here today. And I think you'll be pretty surprised by how different these stabilized keys sound. And you'll just have to take my word for it that that sound translates into feel as well. We spend too much time on our keyboards to have a subpar typing experience, you know? I don't mean working on our keyboards. I mean typing on our keyboards. I bet you each and every one of you types on your keyboard every single day. Think about how many hours you spend typing on a keyboard. Make it pleasant. Make it an enjoyable experience. Make it so that when you sit down to type at your keyboard, you go, ah, yes, excellent. I love typing on this thing. I love interacting with this tool, you know. And yeah, it takes a little bit of time. You gotta buy the grease. It's not expensive. I think each of these tubes was around $6. And there's more than enough grease here to last for basically ever, at least as far as I'm concerned. Maybe if you were doing this professionally, it wouldn't quite, but it's a lot anyway. It's a lot. Oops, that stem just fell out a little. There. Yeah, and this has taken what, you know, half an hour maybe. So. And there she is. Oops, did I? Uh-oh, what have I done? I have put this in the wrong way. Let's try that again, shall we? There. Much better. Much better. So it's a little mucky still. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take one of these cotton swabs, like I said, and I'm just going to clean it up just a tad here and there. Just so it's not too out of line and greasy all over the place. Great. I'll quickly inspect these other ones and do the same. Good. Good, good, good. That one's not bad at all. Good. Last but not least, this little backwards guy. I'm not sure why they have it turned around on the board, but it doesn't really matter. It, you know, performs the same function either way. Okay, so we've got a set of lubed stabilizers. Now we're going to set these aside, and I'm going to show you the final step of this procedure, which is the Band-Aid mod. We use literal Band-Aids, so let's check that out. So for this step, the Band-Aid mod, what we're doing is addressing the bottom out of the stabilizers on the keyboard, and it's pretty simple. All you're going to need is a couple of cloth bandages, like so, and some scissors. Oh, and your grease, your dielectric grease. We're going to have to bring that back here. So we're just going to start out by opening up the Band-Aids. And we're going to be cutting off little strips of these bandages. That's all. And we're going to be literally just adhering them to the PCB where those stabilizers are going to bottom out. So let's just start slicing this here. We don't need the pad part of the Band-Aid. We just need the adhesive part. That's all. And we need to make sure that the pieces are big enough to cover where the stabilizers are going to hit. So if we go and look at one of our little stabilizers here, you can see that we can cut this into two rows here, and that should be fine. So let's slice this down like this, right down the middle. And then we can cut this into little rectangles. Let's say about, yeah, let's cut this into thirds. So like that, and then like that. Now I've got all these little bandage squares that we are going to apply to our PCB. Now, it's a little tricky to find the right spot in this case because there's not a lot of, visible marks here on the PCB. And so what I'm actually going to do, I'm just kind of winging this here, but I'm going to take the top plate here. We're just going to place it down gently. Gotta be careful of our little USB Type-C connectors back here. There we go. So basically, this is what we're looking at here. So we need to make sure that we stick our little Band-Aid bits down right where those stabilizers are going to sit. So I might even be able to apply them through the top plate here. Why don't we do that? Why don't we try that? That may or may not work. Let's actually do this. Let's invert the equation here. Let's put the top plate down and let's drop this in properly. You want to make sure that you are Band-Aid modding the correct side of your PCB. Oops. The side that's going to be facing upwards, of course. So there we go. Just drop that in there. And let's flip this back over carefully so as not to damage anything. And we didn't really gain anything from doing that, did we? No? Oh well. So we just take the adhesive or the little paper off the back of our Band-Aid bit, if I can. This turns out to be the hardest part. There we go. There we go. And then we just want to place this down where that stabilizer is going to be impacting the PCB. So like I said, it's a little tricky because I'm kind of doing it through this top plate. But you could probably just remove this top plate and just kind of guess, once you've done a couple of them. But there's one anyway. If you have a better idea of where the stabilizers are going to be impacting the top plate, yeah, you can probably do it without having this, or impacting the PCB, pardon me. You can do it without having this top plate on top like this. But it's helping guide my sticking here. So you can kind of just drop them in like so. Hopefully get them in the right spot. I think that's probably about right. So I'll show you. Well, actually, I'll show you after I've put a few in here. Now, the reason we're using cloth bandages here is because in a moment, as you will see, we're going to spread some grease on them. And you want them to kind of absorb it, as opposed to just like a plastic bandage. It would just sort of sit on top. That's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for something that adds a bit of padding. We're looking for something that's going to retain a little bit of the grease. There You could probably use like tweezers. It would make this easier if you're doing this method sort of through the top plate like I am. Oh, that one's a little askew. Awkwardly so. I'll like take my scissors here and just kind of... It's not quite ideal, but probably still good enough. As long as you're covering the spot where the stabilizer is going to impact the PCB, then you are in good shape. You just want to make sure you cover that whole spot, and I think we are so far. I do believe we are. Don't know why getting this backing off is so difficult. I don't know. Oops. It's not a pretty mod, obviously, if you care about the aesthetic of your PCB. I guess maybe you wouldn't want to do this, but function over form, I think, is the case here. But of course, yeah, I mean, you don't see your PCB once all your switches are in and all that's done. So, but yeah, maybe you have some sort of aesthetic objection to sticking little bits of Band-Aid all over your PCB. Come on, get off my finger. Does not want to get off my finger. There. I might, I'll take this top plate off afterwards and I'll readjust a little bit, I think, just to make sure we have proper coverage. Okay, so now we'll just do the other half of this Band-Aid, although weirdly this particular bandage was a little off-center, so I don't think we're going to get 6 pieces out of this side, but we only need 4 more actually, so that rattling you're hearing is just the it's the diffuser sitting on top of the back plate. If I had longer fingernails, it would probably be easier. This one's a little tricky to get in there, but I think that's it. Very good. Stick it down there. You could also cut bigger pieces of bandage if you're worried that you're not going to stick it down in quite the right spot. You could just cut larger squares and then it's less of a problem. But I cut kind of tiny squares here. There's really no reason for me to be stingy with the bandages though. It's not like they're... This is not the expensive part of this keyboard. Let's say. Let's leave it at that. Oh, come on. Some PCBs, it's easier to see where the stabilizers are going to strike. And so you probably don't need to try and insert these through the top plate. Alternatively, if you're using plate-mounted plate-mounted stabilizers, screw in, plate mount stabilizer, or start again. If you are using screw-in PCB mount stabilizers, then you can see precisely where your stabilizers are sitting because they've got screw holes. So, but with these plate mount stabilizers, it's a little bit more work to get these things in. To get the right spot. Okay. Oops, I didn't realize I dropped the backing in here. We'll get that out in just a second. So let's lift this, turn it around carefully, does not damage anything. And then let's lift the PCB out here, like this. I must say, I really appreciate that Drop has included these little cutouts on the edges here, you see, for fingers when lifting it out. It helps you lift it out, and on the top and bottom, these little notches. That's a nice little detail. So we'll just put the top plate back here for the moment. Put that aside. Flip this over. And we can see it's a little haphazard. But we can adjust these a little bit here after the fact if we want to. Just kind of pull them around a little bit so they maybe sit a little more symmetrically. This one in particular is a bit of an issue. Let's just lift it up there and replace it. I think that'll be a little better. And this one as well, I wasn't quite happy with. But you see, by sticking them in place with the top plate on, we at least got into the right neighborhood, I think. That one's not so good at all. Of course, you probably don't want to do this too much because you risk losing the stick on your band-aid. But anyway, okay, so there. It's a little hacky looking, but I think that will do. And now the last step here of the band-aid mod is simply taking some of our dielectric grease and using another one of our trusty cotton swabs and just spreading some grease onto each of these squares. You don't need a ton, just enough until it changes color a bit. You can see it darkening. That's what you want there. Good. And this will be sitting underneath our stabilizers where our stems of the stabilizers will impact. And this will help soften the impacts. That's all we're doing here. We're just trying to dampen those impacts so they're not so jarring, so rattly. And hopefully it will produce a nice soft bottom out that both feels and sounds good. That's what we're going for here. I'm just painting it on. Not a whole ton of it, just enough. Just enough. Just enough. Great, that's looking about right. And I'm actually just going to take the other end of my cotton swab here once I put this grease away. And I'm just going to go around and clean up any excess that I may have spilled over the edge a little bit, just so we don't have too much gunk sitting around. Perfect. Okay, so we are left with a PCB with some slightly haphazard Band-Aid squares, greasy Band-Aid squares all over it. But the magic happens, of course, when we put it all together and we type on it. So let's get on with the reassembly. It's time. Okay, so we've done our disassembly, we've addressed our stabilizers, we clipped and lubed them, we Band-Aid modded our PCB here. So now it's time to finally put it all back together. So step one for putting this back together is to take our top plate right here. I'm going to do this facing me because it's just going to be a little easier for me. So we remove our PCB out of the way for a moment. We take our top plate and then we very carefully want to put it face down or face up, you know what I mean. The part where you're plugging in the switches into the top plate. And we want to very carefully just gently slot it in so that the USB Type-C connectors slide into their little cutouts properly. And the whole thing should just kind of fall into place. There, just like that. There's a couple of guide pegs. Actually, I guess every screw hole acts as a guide peg, so you know when it's in place. There's no question about it. So that is in there securely now. And before you ask, yes, we will be putting the stabilizers in, but actually that'll be after we've got the whole thing basically reassembled, because they just snap in on the front. They're plate mounted, so they snap onto that top plate. Okay, then of course we have our fancy new style diffuser with these extra pieces of plastic here. I think they add a little additional rigidity with all these little support pegs and all that. So I don't think there's a top or a bottom to this. Not that I can tell anyway. So let's just plop this down on here and hope that everything aligns. So far so good. Oh, nope, not so good. There is an up and a down. This one here, you see this little screw hole has to align down here. So, there we go. And it's got all these little guide pegs all the way around the outside. That sits in there quite nicely. Very good. Of course, I don't want too much dirt or grime in here, so we want the light to shine through, the edge lighting. Good. Then the next piece, of course, is the back plate, which is this fine chunk of aluminum right here. And I believe it's going to go on just like so. And it just kind of sits on there like that. Very nice. Okay, the next step is the screws. And now there is a certain way in which we are supposed to use these, or to tighten down these screws for one reason or another. So let me just take a look here. Okay, I'm going to have to orient this in the way they've got it oriented here. This is actually a little confusing. I'm looking at the... Oh, no. Hold on a second, guys. Hold on one dang second. What we have to do before we put the top plate on like this, or the back plate, pardon me, is... How could I forget? We have to put in our little steel plates here, which are just going to sit right here in these little notches. and provide a surface for our magnetic feet to attach to. Just like that. I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way to be putting these in. I don't think so. Looks about the same either way. Great. So now that those are in place, now we can put our back plate back on. Excellent. Okay, and that sits pretty securely. Yeah. Okay, so let me take another look at this this pattern that I'm supposed to follow here. I'm just trying to figure out how they've got it oriented. I think they've got it oriented this way, the way we have it here. So 1 is here, and then we have to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, pardon me, bumps my elbow, 7. This is confusing because there's actually 8 screw holes on the back here. This is my problem. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there's 8 screw holes here, but I only see 7 indicated on this this PDF. So anyway, we'll do something that approximates what they show us, but I'm not too very concerned. Okay. So I could use the old screws with the screwdriver. I think they would work, but instead I'm going to utilize the new ones, which come with this socket style head. I work with this little Allen key that they've given us here, like so. Since we are testing this product out, after all, I ought to use all the pieces that come with it, I suppose. So we'll put all of them in, but we'll tighten them down in the order that they give us. Here, let's just get these all in to their respective spots. And we'll just tighten them down to just where they're just starting to get a little bit tight. And then we'll finish them off, as I said, in the order specified. This is a very easy solution, certainly, this Allen key situation. So I can see why they would do this. You don't need any additional tools, just what they give you. That's fairly useful. Although this thing's a little bit annoying to use. Not gonna lie, a little bit irritating. Just maybe it's a little easier to do it this way since we don't, yeah, let's do that. We're not really cranking on them, so I don't need all that leverage. These are basically just like finger tight at the moment, not much beyond. Okay, now let's tighten down in the order that they seem to want here, even though we have a slightly different number of, of screws. So first of all, this one, we tighten this down. Not too tight, but enough that it's going to hold everything firm. Then this one. Oops. Good. That might be another reason why they give you this thing, because it's hard to over torque with this thing. That could be part of it. 3 is this one right here. That's good and solid. 4 is one of these ones up here. Awkwardly, there's 2 where they say there should be 1, but we'll do this one. Then we'll come back to the second one last of all, I think. Oops. Good. And then I was just looking at this and I already forgot. 5, 6, 7, 8, I guess. 5, 6, 7, 8. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Reassembled. Now, the last part of all this, and it feels nice and solid. Nice and solid. The last part here is to reinstall our stabilizers. So I'm going to face this to me. And, well, not the last part. After this, then we have switches and caps still, but that's okay. So let's do this. And we'll just start snapping these back into place. We might as well start up at the top here. So these should just come in like so. We have to slide the wire under the top plate, and then this should just go snap, and this should just go snap, and I think hopefully our aim with our band-aid pieces was okay. It looks pretty good. This one's maybe a little far over, but I think it's okay. We'll do this one next. So we slide the wire under, snap, snap, stabilizers in place. Here comes this one. Snap, snap, stabilizers in place. Let's do this one. Slide it in this way. Snap, snap. Very good. And last but not least, we have our space bar. Snap, snap. And there it is. Just as easy as that. Okay. Put that aside. So, we've now gotten back to the bare board point. Let's put on some switches and some keycaps, shall we? For switches, we've got a bag full of Halo Clears, which are a modern take on Cherry MX Clears, which are a heavier tactile switch, similar to a Cherry MX Brown, but with a heavier spring, and in the case of the Halo Clears, a somewhat rounder, smoother, tactile bump and smoother action. They have a really nice, smooth feel throughout their actuation. So these were sent by Drop. Originally, actually, they were on my Prionic. But we're repurposing them to go on here. because I think they'll be nice. All right, let's start popping them in. Hot swap sockets are so lovely. Such a delightful innovation. The ability to just pop switches in and out at will. Lets you do this kind of thing without having to do any desoldering. And it lets you experiment. Maybe you get your first mechanical keyboard and you get a switch type that you think you'll like, but over time maybe your tastes change, or perhaps you find a superior, similar but superior switch. Then the hot swap type boards accommodate that. Is, of course, a completely standard 10 keyless layout. So, we've got 87 switches to put in place. I will have another keyboard modification video, keyboard beautification video perhaps, coming up in the not too distant future. It is another kind of hybrid review / pimp my keyboard type video. And I'm looking forward to that one as well. That one is a little more pedestrian, one might say, in its components, whereas this build is a little bit more out there just in terms of its pricing once all the parts are together. So there's our first stabilized switch in place. Not that it does anything to the switch, it's just the cap that's stabilized, but another thing I appreciate about the control is just how easy these sockets are to use. I know that sounds silly, but I've used hot swap boards where you really have to force the switches into place because the edges of each cutout are kind of rough. They're not finished very nicely, or something to do with the sockets themselves. Not the case here. Really easy to just pop the switches in, very little force required. Just line it up and press down evenly. And if you do feel like you have to force it at some point, you're probably not lined up right. It's probably something you're missing. So take a moment, reseat the switch, and then just press down gently. one thing I am slightly leery of here is that I do find that Halo Clears have a bit more wobble to the stem than I like. They don't have a box type surround around the stem, so they lack that additional stability. And I'm a little concerned that with SA keycaps, SA profile keycaps, which is what I'm going to be putting on here, they might feel a bit too wobbly. And SA profile caps, for those of you who may not know, are a very tall profile. You'll see them shortly. They're an older profile that dates back to, I don't know, probably the 60s. And they feel fantastic to type on, but they are very tall. And because of that, I think it will accentuate the wobble a little bit. I'm hoping not, but I'm worried they may. So the Halo Clears with the SA caps may not be the best pairing, but that's my issue. That's not anything to do with the board, obviously. There's a decent chance these Halo Clears won't stay on here for that long. They're mostly just here for the time being. But I'm on the hunt, of course, always for better and better tactile switches. Because tactile switches are my favorites. But I have yet to try out what are considered some of the best. I've not tried out the V2 Zelios yet. I've not tried Holy Pandas, which everyone speaks very reverently of. Nor have I tried out like Box Royals. Those are three of sort of the more highly regarded tactile type switches. And as a little reminder, a tactile switch is a switch that has a bump, a little bump in it. So it's not totally linear from top to bottom. There's a noticeable bump, but it doesn't have a click, not a distinct click. That is my favored switch type, because they're not super loud and obnoxious, but you still get some feedback when the switch is actuated, which you might not, or you don't get with a linear switch. Yeah, there's many switches I'd like to try. There's so many out there, so many options. Again, that's why I think having a hot-swappable board is so valuable in this day and age. There's just so many different cool and fun switches. And don't get me wrong, I do enjoy typing on linears from time to time. And I definitely have some clicky switches that I like a lot. I like the Kale box clicky switches with the click bar instead of the click slider. I think those feel really nice, but they're not my daily drivers. tactile bump on the halo clears is not that pronounced. It's certainly a noticeable, discernible. I would say it's a stronger bump than a Cherry MX Brown, although that's not hard to do. And I'd say they are more tactile than like a Kale Box Brown, for example. But not on the order of something like Zelios. And there we go. Our whole board now has the switches installed. And it looks pretty nice, doesn't it? There's something appealing about keyboards in the nude with no caps on them. Especially in this case because the halo clears are very bright and clear and white, and I think that matches the bright silver of this new case very nicely. Okay, last step in the assembly here is the keycaps. Let's do it. So for the keycaps today, we have something very special indeed, as I alluded to earlier. Something that I'm very excited to finally put on a keyboard, because I've been waiting for the right build, and I think this is it. So, what we have here are the SA Vilebloom keycaps. These are group buy exclusive. They're way too much money. They're ridiculous in that regard, but they are Pokemon themed keycaps, you guys. I've got the whole base set, as well as the numpad over here, which we're not going to actually be using for this board because it's 10 keyless. We've also got non-standard caps for 65 to 95, 75% layouts with weirdo keycap sizes. Again, I'm not going to be using those here because we've just got a standard layout. And I've got some novelty caps, which we will be using here because I think they're a lot of fun. So we'll put those aside for the moment though, because we'll start with the base coverage here. We'll put these aside as well. I'll probably use them one day. They're not going to stay on this board forever, but for now, this is going to be their home. These are double shot ABS keycaps. You can see they're nice and thick. And they are in SA profile, which means they are spherical in profile. And they have these sculpted, scooped tops that kind of cup the fingers very nicely. Also, in typical SA style, they have centered legends. Very bold, simple font. Sans serif. So, let's just start putting these on here. I'm going to turn this around to face me. Otherwise, it's just going to confuse the heck out of me. I think trying to figure out keyboard or key positions upside down is just going to be confusing. So we've got a D. That's going to go right here. You guys will see. I know it looks like a bit of a mishmash of color right now, but just wait until it's done. Wait until you can see the full effect. I think you'll really like it. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous set, in my humble opinion. Oops. So, there's definitely a bit of wobble there, but it doesn't seem unreasonable. We'll see how it feels after I've typed on it a bit. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, what else do we have here? The number 9, that's gonna go where? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right there. You can see that these SA caps are very tall for some of the rows. Very tall indeed. Those do wobble quite a bit, somewhat regrettably. So, like I said, I don't think this is the final home for these keycaps. They will likely end up somewhere else, on something else, at some point. But for now, it's a fun way to make use of them. Finally, like I said, I've had these sitting, waiting for quite a while. I think this is the up arrow. F6, that's going to go right here. I love the sounds these things make. Specifically, these are Pokemon themed, but they're also where's this go? What do we got here? T goes right here. They're kind of like poison Pokemon themed, or like plant and poison, I guess. Grass and poison, pardon me. Triggered. You know, because as they're called Vilebloom, it evokes Vilebloom, the Pokemon, of course. Oh, we've got our first stabilized key here, guys. Let's put the enter on and see how it sounds and feels. I hope it's good. Get that on there. So there's still maybe a little bit of rattle in there. Maybe I could have even gone a little heavier on the lube, but it's not too bad. You can hear though, it bottoms out nice and soft. Alright, well, next time we'll just have to go a little heavier, I think, on the Teflon lube, I think. But it certainly doesn't feel bad. Anyway, it's certainly an improvement over the original. We've got a menu here, which is like, yes, there is a menu key, but also makes me think of like the start menu in Pokemon or whatever. Gosh, what is this? Maybe, I'm not sure if on these bottom rows, if SA is a symmetrical profile or not. Yes, so I ordered these through Mech Supply. which is based out of the UK, so it didn't even occur to me, but it comes with a pound sign instead of a dollar sign. I didn't even think about that. We've also got an ISO style enter, which we won't be using, of course, but that's okay. Don't know why it doesn't really want to focus properly there. There we go. We've got a control. Put that down there. We've got a Windows key. I'm just going to come way over here. You can probably see that we're starting to get a bit of a gradient here in color. Oh, I love the scoops on the home row keys that want to orient your fingers. They are very scooped, and I love that feel. V will be down here. F2. We've got a big old chunky shift key. Let's put that on there. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, the enter is just a little rattly. It wouldn't be difficult, however, to remove the stabilizers because they're plate mount, so we can just pop them out and I can relube them with a little extra. That's probably what I'll do, but not in the video. Not in the video. So I will, we'll take a look at the, oh, what's this? I wonder, is the at key under the apostrophe in UK layouts? That's funny, I had no idea. Oops. Is that over there, technically? Home over here. U, we'll go here. Left shift. That sounds pretty nice. Starting to come together. Yeah, we'll take a closer look at the novelties afterwards and probably swap a few in here. Oops. No. Minus first and plus. That's an N. C. Over here. Another arrow key. I'm really not sure if there's a right or wrong orientation for them. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we do have, I don't know what the heck this key is then. Weird, eh? Here, we've got, oops, we've got this thing. this thing. This is typical in North American keyboards. I don't know what this is. Anyway, maybe they give us a few alternatives. Question mark down here. Print screen will be up here. F. Oh, we have the scooped F or the non-scooped F. I like the scooped one, so we're going to use that. F4. This is a comma, and it's going to go right here. We've got some page down here. We've got to the H. F12. The I. R is right here. Oops. D6. Minus. One. That's got to be a left control because of the color. F8. Scroll lock. Escape. I don't know what the heck this is. I'm not familiar with that key. Weird. This is the ISO layout backslash. We're not going to need that either. Oh, we've got a small shift, which we will not need. We've got end. That'll go there. Caps lock, of course. There's our period key. Pause goes here. M. Nope, not that side. What am I doing? So weird. A tilde and a hashtag. The pound sign. Not sure where that goes either. We've got some interesting alternate keys here, that's for sure. J. No, wait, what am I doing? That is the non-scooped J. And we don't need that. What we need there is an L. Oh, there we go. Oh, of course. I'm an idiot. The dollar sign is under the 4. I guess the pound sign is under the 3 in the UK, but we have an alternate 3 here with the hashtag or pound sign or whatever, as you would expect on North American layout. That's great. There is another alternative ISO layout backslash key. There's our L. There's our E. 5. here. Square bracket other side. If we didn't want to use the menu key, we could use a Windows key over here, but I like menu. Nearly there, you guys. There's the backspace. Yeah, that feels good. A little too much rattle on that enter. Bit of rattle there. Not too bad on that shift. But easily fixed. Last one. Oh, it's a proper 2. I should be using a keycap puller to take these off, but it's easy enough to pull them off with your bare hands when they're so chonky like this. Okay, so these can all go back in. And last but not least, we've got a space bar, you guys. This will be the test for the stabilizers here, for the lubing. Let's see. Pretty good. A little bit of a tick there still. But not too bad at all. And there you have it, my friends. The drop control with the new silvery aluminum case sporting SA Vilebloom, looking mighty fine, I must say, with clipped and lubed stabilizers, band-aid modded, and halo clear switches. A sight to behold, isn't it? But before we get to the typing test, I know you're eager for it, and we will get there. Let's take a quick look at those novelty caps, because they're kind of fun. So, let's just look at them all. This is for, I guess, replacing the escape, or one of those taller caps. It's kind of like a little leafy sort of thing. We've got a Pokemon cap, as if you were accessing your Pokemon in the menu. We have a smaller size of that. We've got a little flower. That's nice. We've got a Pokeball, you guys. Check it out. That's going to replace the escape key for sure. We've got item and run. Again, if you guys ever played the old Pokemon games, these will be familiar to you. I think we have these in larger sizes. We can replace our modifiers, I think, with some like that. There's another little flower. Oh, there's another weird. Oh, it's like the Pokebucks. Check it out. Under the 4 instead of the $sign. I love it. I love it. We will use that. There's a lower profile Pokeball. And another leafy thing. These are for, I think, down here on the modifiers if you have a board with non-standard size modifiers down there. There's that little leafy design again, but on a larger cap. There's item, there's Pokeball. And we've kind of got variations. Oh, there's a fight. I like that. Come on. There. And there's a larger size of that. Okay, well, what do we want to do here? I don't actually know what is, like, supposed to go where, but if we were to make our Windows keys Pokeballs, or no, what do we want to do? If we want to fight, item, run, Pokemon, if we wanted all those, in what order should we do this? Fight, I guess. I don't know, it doesn't matter, but we can just throw any of them on there for now. This is just for fun. For funsies. Let's just throw fight on there. The function key can be, what? Item, perhaps? Menu is good, but let's make it a Pokeball. The Pokeball, the red is on top, right? Gosh, I should know that, yeah. There we go. And instead of control, we will do run. Sure. I'll probably end up changing this up, but for this control, we can swap it with the no. I guess we have to because of the way these are done here. So maybe for Windows key, what do? We did Windows key Pokeball over there. Well, it doesn't really much matter. Oh, I see. It's got to be this one if we want to keep with the color scheme. In fact, we don't have a lot of choice here. We kind of have to keep that as a win. And then Alt can become, just because of the way the colors work out, we can do that, like so. And then if we wanted to be, you know, if we wanted Alt to match over there, we'd have to do this. And we'll replace that escape with a Pokeball. We've got a lot of Pokeballs on here now, don't we? Oops. There. Oh, and we were going to replace the 4, weren't we? Just because I think that's really fun. Again, I should be using a keycap puller here. Being bad. And if we really wanted to be consistent, I suppose, we can swap this Pokeball here to right there. And sure, we can put the run there. It doesn't much matter. Okay, guys. Well, I think this thing looks really good. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really pleased with the way this turned out and the contrast between the bright Pokemon colors and the the bright silvery background. I think it just really works. But of course, you guys probably want to hear this thing in action now that we've got all these new switches and these loop stabilizers and all that. So let's go give it a typing test, shall we? And there you have it, my friends. What did you think of the typing sound of this keyboard after all of these modifications? I personally have been really enjoying typing on it, although it's clearly not perfect. There's still a bit of a tick in a couple of these stabilizers, a little rattle in the shift there, and still a bit of a tick in the space bar as well. But I think it's a vast improvement from how it originally shipped anyway. So with a little bit more lube, I think that this thing will truly be worthy of the title of an endgame keyboard, perhaps, if that truly even exists, if there is such a thing. Many people will tell you there is not. But more to the point, what do I think about this replacement case for the drop control? After all, that is what these videos are ostensibly about, along with a lot of other stuff. But I'm not going to do a traditional rundown of the pros and cons like I usually do for my relaxing reviews here, because this is a bit of a different beast. Really is the kind of thing where if you want it, you already know whether you're going to get it or not, right? Like, if you want to replace the case on your drop control, there's really only one way to do it, and that's buying one of these official replacement cases. Now, in terms of their construction and quality, they are top notch. They are just as durable and solid and well made as the original case that ships with the control. I have no concerns there. And if anything, I actually think aesthetically they're a bit nicer because you don't have those stickers and stuff on the back. You've just got this nice clean back to go with the nice clean front. The design of this case originally is fantastic, and these replacement cases just carry that forward, but with new color options. So no complaints there. I think it looks and feels really, really good. I will say, however, it's a bit of a bummer that if you have an older style drop control, that you have to spend an extra $10 to get that upgraded diffuser piece of plastic to stick in there for the edge lighting. As you saw in our build, it's not dramatically different from the old one, except it's got 2 additional pieces of reinforcing plastic that run through the middle here, and a couple of the bits around the edge are a little bit different. I'm not quite sure why they had to break compatibility with the old style one, to be totally honest, because I don't see any tangible benefits from the new style LED diffuser. The edge lighting looks just as great as it did before, and the keyboard feels just as solid as it did before. So that's kind of a strange thing and a bit unfortunate. Minor quibble, really, though. Especially because, you know, $10 isn't that much when you compare it to the $95 that you will pay for one of these aluminum replacement cases. Now, it is very nicely made, very high quality, and looks really, really good. But $95 is pretty expensive for something like this when you consider the fact that the whole keyboard, the entire thing initially, will cost you $200. So in this case, the cost of a replacement case is almost half the cost of the keyboard, but of course it doesn't come with the PCB or the keycaps or the switches or anything. It's just the case. So this is an important consideration. Is changing the color on your drop control really worth that premium? In the world of mechanical keyboards, things can get very expensive, and I don't think that $95 for a very nicely made aluminum case is right out of the ballpark, but I do think that it's maybe a little bit more than many people are willing to spend. I think around the $70 mark, it would certainly be a bit more appealing, a bit more of an impulse buy for many folks. But if you want the replacement case, if the colors really appeal to you, and you're willing to shell out the $95, you will find that it is a very well-made product. The replacement itself is very easy. The tear down of the board and putting it back together is quite straightforward, and everything is included in the package with those little the socketed screws that you can use the Allen key with. You don't even need a screwdriver, so the whole process is about as easy as it could possibly be. And the product itself is of very high quality. So if you are an owner of a drop control mechanical keyboard and you would like to add a new splash of color to your keyb, then I have no problem recommending that you check out the replacement aluminum case like we saw here today. And that, my friends, will bring us to the end of yet another relaxing review, a two-parter this time. Quite the lengthy process. Special thanks, of course, to drop.com for sending over the replacement aluminum case that we worked with here today, as well as for originally sending the drop control over and the halo clear switches that I used on this build here today from a previous video, actually from the Prionic build video. If you'd like to check out Drop's mechanical keyboard products, you will find a link down below this video to the aluminum replacement cases for the control, but it's also worth checking out all their other stuff. They have all kinds of cool keyboard stuff. Lots of group buys with cool sets of keycaps and stuff. Not this one in particular, but many others. So do click through, check out that link. And of course, special thanks to all of you guys for watching. I hope you found this, of course, informative. This is a bit different than what I usually do with these reviews, but I wanted to give you guys something special, something a little bit educational. Maybe you learned something about, for instance, clipping and looping and band-aid modding your stabilizers. I've been getting more requests for keyboard build videos recently, and I hope this satisfies those of you who've been looking for something like that. But as well as informative, I hope you found this relaxing, and I look very forward to having you back here next time for another episode of Relaxing Reviews. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye for now.